Welcome to Spotlight TV. I'm your host, Emily Zubi. And when I tell you that we have the rock star of public relations with us today, we actually were so blessed to work with this incredible rock star. We want to welcome Aileen Abella, which is founder and CEO of A Square Media. And when I tell you she like PR, I've learned so much from you. You was a speaker at our CEO circle, handled our public relations for 50 Shades of Pink. And I've met so many wonderful contacts, and I love working with you. So, I'm honored to have you here. Want to hear all about your story, how you started. You've been doing this for over 15 years.
Yep.
And I got to tell you that when you spoke at our CEO circle, I know all the women were like taking notes, and they were like the littlest things that we didn't even think of that you shared with us. So today is just all about you. The spotlight is on you. So welcome, and tell us how you got started.
Hey, Emily. Oh, that's great. That day I told you a little bit off camera that day I was a little bit freaking out, being in this lunch with these amazing women, these CEOs, and then having none other than Lori Jennings walk in, and you're like, deer caught on the headlights. So it's amazing to get that feedback, because a lot of times we're behind the scenes. So when we get invited to something like this, it's a little intimidating at first, but then it's like, it's such a nice platform, and this is beautiful.
Behind the scenes, and you started early this morning.
I know, yeah. I was on set before 5, so yeah, it's been a minute. So yes, I started 15 years ago. And I always say that some of the best ideas come from getting a kick in the butt. And that's what happened. I kind of lost my job at that moment. And I had just bought a new house. I had a 2-year-old. I had a family. I had just had diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. I had a temporary paralysis, got it diagnosed with autoimmune. Had 2 mortgages because bought another house, and then you lose your job and you're like, what do I do now? And I had been working on the corporate side. Since out of college, I've been working for the Newswire, distribution. I thought I was going to stay that route forever. And I had a friend of mine at the time who was a headhunter, and she gave me tons of advice on LinkedIn and this. And I had another friend, totally unrelated to the industry, and she referred me to my first client. They're like, they're looking to do public relations. That's something you do, this client. And one of the first things I did was a red carpet. It was a pretty big client, and, fake it till you make it. It was put together a red carpet with them, with media and all this. And, like they say, the rest is history. I never would have gone after the entertainment side of the business, because I had a lot of corporate clients. I did a lot of, because that's the world I came from. And then just working with media, I just started, evolving towards entertainment and lifestyle. And I really enjoy the personal branding side of it, working with people. As you know, we work very closely with people. It's not just necessarily a brand, but we get to know people's hopes and dreams, and, where they want to be in life. And you get very personal, and you take it very personal. And I think I bring that passion to what I do in, public relations, and I integrate public relations with social media, marketing, and constantly evolving over the last 15 years.
And one of the things that I would say in that relations, you put the relationship.
Yeah.
Because what I know working with you is that you're very service-oriented, you're very detail-oriented. I mean, I don't think I've ever gotten photos back, and I was telling you this before we started, that the very next day, I mean, I was like, the photos were in my inbox with names, everything, and I'm like, does she sleep?
Yeah, I know. And the answer is no.
You don't sleep.
I know. I think, especially when you hire like professionals for event, which I always try to get, photographers, videographers. I believe in building a team, right? So I consistently try to use the same people over and over. And they know how I like to work. I know their quality of work. Because, early on you work with people that are highly recommended, and you get your photos back 2 weeks later. And I've learned this from experience, sometimes, talent, or, you're in an event and, social media, it's immediate. Like everybody, if you don't send me your professional photos, I'm going to post what I have on my phone, and that's it. 2 weeks later, when you send me those pictures are nice, but I'm on to the next event. so I try to get, part of what I do is try to get photos the same day because everybody wants to post their photos, right? Especially professional photos, and send out, a media alert from an event like when we did Miami Women Who Rock. And, I was really impressed by you putting all those women together in the middle of the day in such a beautiful event. And I was like, everyone needs their photos right away. Press wants their photos right away, to get the photos right away. Because otherwise it's all over social media and then it's old news, right? So yeah, that's the way the news cycle works.
It's interesting. I didn't know about, some of the things that you had encountered. And I always say that every setback is worthy of a comeback.
Yeah.
And I really admire women that, apply that, right?
Yep.
And through faith and resilience and, you really learn who someone is, when you see them go through a particular situation and come back even stronger. What advice would you give to women in business and, particularly women, because we wear so many different hats?
Yeah, I think we have this superpower as women that we can multitask, right? Balance is hard. I know you recently had someone who was saying balance doesn't exist. I think as women, we've been kind of fed that, and we kind of have realized recently, balance doesn't exist as much. We have to find our new normal. So women in business, I would tell them, find that new normal and definitely surround yourself with women who are going to support you. I think, and people do tell me, I'm a girl's girl. I like girls supporting girls. I don't think I have to dim your light to shine, in what I do. That being said, that doesn't mean you have to trust everyone. You don't have to open yourself up to everybody. But I do believe in collaboration, and I do believe in, I hire people all the time, like, oh, you do this better than I do. I would love to hire you. I don't expect to know everything, and kind of build that network. But, early on, people would ask me, what's the key? How do you have so many clients? I go, I'm always on my phone. I answer within seconds. I'll answer anytime. I'll answer anybody. For a while, I even had my phone number in my Instagram profile. I think it might still be there. But yeah, because that's what we do. We work in such a fast-paced environment, right? Especially, if you're working for your event and you need an answer, who's sitting at the table? How many people do you need? Or an event, who's coming so I can have you on the list. You need that information. You can't wait.
Yeah.
So kind of be responsive. That's a pet peeve that I think we might have, that people don't answer their emails, or you leave them a message and they take 2 weeks. And, it's kind of, your word is your bond. Answer people, even if it's sorry, we're going to pass on this opportunity. Make sure you answer people and build those relationships and build your network,
And this is an area that has really changed, I think, because 15 years, so you have seen the influx.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I used to be in media at lunch, TV networks, and, the industry as, I had a .com, studio, but it has really, really, if there's anything that's changed, it has been media. What would you say are some of the biggest changes you've seen, and what have you done to grow your clients with the times? Because, staying with technology, easier said than done.
Yeah, that's a big deal. When I started, one of the things I would do for my corporate clients, I remember we would do things for Telcel, for example, that, they launched in the US market. We'd do Twitter parties,
Tweet out.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember. And, we would do press conferences, and I would invite back then, bloggers, and the clients would be, why are you inviting bloggers to press conferences? I'm like, this is the future, guys. You have to stay with the times with social media. And I would do the social media recap reports from the Twitter parties and stuff, and people would understand. And I remember we got major news coverage once. I used to manage social media for a big brand, and it was, social media at first was a throwaway for a lot of big brands. They were like, let the kids do it or whatever. And we got national media coverage because of a social media post.
Wow.
I think that's where everybody's like, wait a minute, what's the social media team doing? What are we doing over here? So we've gone from the evolution of, Twitter party mom bloggers, to content creators, influencers. The media landscape has changed. Even during the pandemic, I was able to, create content for a lot of TV stations and stuff. We would shoot our own content and send over the footage, and we'd be able to do that. That has evolved. And now I'm producing a lot of podcasts. So we've gone from, the Twitter to the Instagram to now everybody knows how to use CapCut or Editor. We all have to do our own videos. That's a big change. Some clients do it better than the pros at this point. A lot of clients have their own content producers on staff that will produce their content and daily content. And that's a big thing. And the podcast. And one of the things I tell clients all the time is to be your own bombillo, which is kind of funny, it's Spanglish, but be your own light. Don't wait to be invited to talk about what you want to discuss. Create your own event. Create your own opportunities, create your own podcast, be your own platform, shine a light on yourself for what you want to talk about. You don't have to, the media landscape has changed so much that you don't have to wait to be invited on a show to speak your mind. You created your own show, Emily. You did your own thing. And that's the beauty of this fast-paced media environment. But yeah, we've seen the gamut from way back from Twitter when you had to, wait to be invited to push out your own content, create your own content. And now we're all editing your own content and producing your own stuff,
And we have a beautiful friend in common, someone who, I have the honor of working with, and, Romina, who has done our luxury, and is now the creative artistic director for our book of leaders. And, she has her podcast. So I'm curious, what bits of advice do you give? Like, because, people always say, oh, maybe I should do a podcast. And they don't realize how much work goes into it, not to scare them. Right. But, I know that you give a lot of really good practical advice and some of the things that, have you thought about? Have you, these are the 5 things you've got to have in place. Yeah. So, what would be that advice that you would give to someone who's playing with the idea of maybe doing a podcast?
I think consistency is key. Obviously the same rules apply for marketing. Know your audience. Can have a podcast, or maybe you can't, but I'm going to talk about everything. One day I'm going to sell insurance. The next day I'm going to do fashion advice. It can't be all over the place. And know your brand. And the same thing that's working a lot now on TikTok, for example, double down. Know your audience, know what works for you as far as content, and double down on it. I know of Romina, our mutual friend, we love her. A lot of things that I see that like, I call it the aha moment. You did this, like a little spark. Do more of that. Keep doing that. Do it until you're blue in the face. And make that your brand, where people, see it and recognize you for that. Obviously, good guests, things that you'll see online. Obviously, storytelling, marketing, all about the story. You're either all about the host, being larger than life, or the guest being larger than life with a great story. It doesn't have to be somebody famous, but a great story to share. I think and then consistency. You can't, there's a lot of podcasts that might star or shows, and then, like, I'm busy, or it doesn't come out, or this week, no episode, or whatever. I think being that consistency and being loyal to your audience and staying true to them is huge. So when you commit, make sure you do it, because it's a lot of work. There's a lot of people behind the cameras to make things happen, to make sure that, your work is there, from booking, to content, who you're going to have, what are we going to talk about? You have your videographer, your editors, and all that. So put together your team and be consistent with what you do.
Now, your business has grown exponentially. Yeah. What would you say, like, in terms of, if someone's out there thinking, well, you know what, I'd like to work with Aileen, and I think I'm ready. Yeah. What would you say are the, things that you would say, okay, you're ready if?
Yes, exactly. You're ready if. And one of the conversations I have with clients a lot is, they'll come in for a meeting and they want to hire me, and they'll be like, could you explain to me what a publicist is? Because a lot of times they see what I do, and they're like, I would like somebody like that on my side, on my team, working with me, but I'm not quite sure what you do. I think we need to have that conversation first, and I could do a lot, because I do a lot of personal, brand building with people. And I think people just need to be ready to commit the time. I've had clients that have been great clients, are still great friends to this day, that I've told them, you know what, let's take a break, because you're not ready to commit to the time that it takes to,
Right.
answer me. Hey, I have this opportunity. They're not, I can't get you the photos. Oh, I can't send you that. Oh, I can't go do this. I'm really busy, or whatever. The time commitment that it takes to put into doing public relations or a podcast or being a public figure or putting yourself out there for your business or your brand. It takes time. It takes calls and creating content and all that. So I think be ready to commit the time, not so much resources, because a lot of clients, you give them advice and they just need to be ready to execute and carve out that time and just make it happen the same way we make things happen. And have that conversation. Oh, what is a publicist? What do you do? And go from there. Yeah.
And what would you say, like, okay, the press release nowadays, like a lot of people think, oh, okay, well, I put a press release out. It doesn't, that's just step one.
Yes. And then now everybody does ChatGPT. You like 10 years ago, I remember I was with a client on a radio show that they had. And one of the radio hosts, who to this day is a good friend of mine, he told me, I don't have a need for a publicist. Until you do digital PR, I don't have a need for a publicist. And that has always stuck with me early on. He doesn't know it, but that stuck because I'm like, I do digital PR. I always thought that as my claim to fame, because I'm digital first, the same way, when mobile rolled out, you had to be mobile first for reactive for websites. I always say I'm digital first. And I think that's really important to, everything that I do with PR is digital. So how are we going to make this, digital? Yeah, you have the press release, but, you gotta, are we really, is it newsworthy, or what are we sharing? Do we have the assets to go with it? The written words nowadays alone doesn't do it. Do we have the B-roll? Do we have the video? Do we have the footage? Do we have really good photos to go with it? And who are we speaking to? There's news that it's not for every media outlet. Sometimes you just want to give an exclusive to one media outlet, and that's okay too. And being able to have those conversations with clients and because sometimes you want to fill out their agenda. I got you 10 interviews in 1 week. That's not necessarily worth their time, yours or their brand,
Yeah. And what would you say is biggest success stories that you would say that when you look back at your career and your business, and you would say, proudest moments?
My proudest moments are not necessarily the ones that other people would see as successful, because I've done great work for clients, success, sold out, tons of money, and then they turn around and fire you because they want to do it in-house because you make it look so easy. So that's happened to me, on a few big clients, which is, it's okay. It's the nature of the beast, right? I say that right now, the news cycle might be like 3 months. Sometimes you're like, oh, that's a 3-month client, and I don't really want to take on those clients that just want to do a little bit and then, fall off the face of the earth. My biggest success story is I've had clients for over 10 years. I've had some clients with me and, and they keep coming to me and I keep growing with them and we keep pivoting, with their personal brand. With Adriana Martin is one of them. She's been with me over 10 years when she used to do fitness on TV. And she came to me one day, she's going to kill me for saying it. She's like, I don't want to squat anymore. I don't want to do fitness. So we've done nutrition. She does her podcast, but she sold on QVC. She's just a salesperson, and she's amazing. And, we've been together, been with her through divorce, kids. Our kids are going off to college now. My youngest is 2. We're empty nesters together now. So, for me that, and everybody spells success differently. For me, that's success. Or when somebody refers you, or like, even if they're not working with you, they'll still say, oh, Aileen's the best. You got to work with her, and that to me means a lot, because I do reputation management for my clients. I need to make sure my reputation also precedes me, with what I do.
And what I see is that you're very consistent in your brand building. Like anyone that I've seen you work with, they seem so on brand and everything. But I've gone to some of your red carpet events, beauty event, like no matter where, and there's a certain amount of elegance, grace. Like, so how would you describe your brand?
Oh my gosh, my brand is all over the place, and I'm not afraid to say it because it's in constant evolution, right? The same for a while. I've done music. I say I do lifestyle and entertainment because I've done music, I've done beauty, I've done brands, I've done public figures. I think I do a lot of executive visibility, and I treat all my clients as talent, no matter what you do. If you're an architect, if you're, if you have a makeup brand, you're talent, and I'm going to do executive visibility with you, and I'm going to treat you as such. And you're going to you always have something to talk about. And that's, I think that's where I come in, and I treat everybody like their talent. Everybody's VIP. If if you're a guest on my red carpet, I'm going to treat you like if you're my client. If you're not, I'm going to make sure you get the star treatment. Because I always say you took time out of your day.
That.
You took the time out of your day to get dressed up, come to my event, support my client.
I don't know how you make everyone feel. I've seen you manage I'm exhausted for you by this time because I've seen you be the last one to sit down.
I know, right?
And I'm like, where did
kid
she
in
get
heels,
the
right?
Where does she get the energy? But you really work the room. You're around. You're introducing people, making connections, and I would say you were born to do this because you have that natural ability to kind of have the antennas up and be able to make those connections in a room. And
it's funny because I'm an introvert, and I always say,
I don't get that.
I know, right? It's I have an alter ego. So when I'm in work mode, I have an alter ego, and that person takes over because I'm really an introvert. I know at your last event, I know I was there. We need to take a picture. I never took a picture of people there. Somebody goes, aren't you going to take a photo? And I wasn't with a client at the moment. I was just kind of hanging out. I'm like, I know, que pena. I was like, I know I'm shy. I can't stand up and take a picture by myself. And they look at me like, what do you mean? This is what you do. I'm like, I do it for other people, not for me, So yeah. It's hard, but at the same time, we come in work mode. I mean, I've seen you at your events, every single person in the room, everybody feels amazing. People don't want to leave when they go to, my
an out-of-body experience. It takes me a week to recover.
I am floored. I think so many women who have, I think your events could be easily all day and you don't talk to people because you want to talk to all these women that you don't necessarily see at events. And, for all these women to, get dressed up, take time out of their busy schedule, because these are all these are women who are high profile, and they go to this event and really take away from it. That's a lot, because sometimes we'll go to events to support or, network or whatever, but people really look forward to your events.
No,
I see it like everybody wants to go.
We have the fun factor.
Yes.
Is, fun and fabulous. And I tell everyone, there's always a little bit of dancing. There's always music. There's a playlist. There's a lot. I came to Miami to start up MTV Latino, so I incorporate music. I incorporate music in everything. Yeah. And, the first person I visit behind the scenes, other than, all our set design, event planning, we've used Michelle Reese Events for years. And
Gorgeous.
she's incredible. Like, I have a vision, she executes it. And this one in particular, I kept on saying is like, no one had Taj Mahal in their photos. They had the Radio City Music Hall, and the whole thing was the pink passport around the world. But, I'm like, okay,
you just have so many details that you get a little bit overwhelmed. There's just they have just this, and I want a photo over here and a photo over here. You can easily make it like an 8-hour event, and I think it still wouldn't get through everything, because I want to take photos over here. I want to do this. I want to do this activation. I want to, talk to this person. Oh my gosh. And then, you'll see people on social media. Oh my God, you were there. I didn't see you. I can't believe it.
It's about the experience.
Yes.
So, without a doubt. And, but you mentioned something really interesting that you're an introvert by.
Yes.
Which I don't see, but I'm curious, what advice would you give to your younger self? Like, were you a shy child? Now having the experience that you have, what would you say to your younger self?
I think something that takes over a lot for us is imposter syndrome. And I think we need to get over that, because a lot of times, that kind of holds us back. And I think my younger self, I tell people I would have been, in the same job. I was in college, I would have retired there if I wouldn't have gotten that, outside my comfort zone. And, as cliche as it sounds, you do have to step out of your comfort zone. And this right here is stepping out of my comfort zone, being in an interview. But you asked me and I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm going to step out. and put myself in the chair. I think stepping out of your comfort zone and not getting your own head. I think if I would have told my younger self this, it was like, no, I would never. I'm a passenger princess. I don't drive around. I don't, I want to be in one place all day. That's not me now. It's not. I say I have to be where my clients are. I drive to their office. I drive around. I go to, all these events all day. Your job is to know all these people. I think I could do it better a lot of times, but step out of that comfort zone.
I love working with you, and I've learned so much. And I always like to be with other women, with CEOs, with executives, with philanthropists that I can learn from. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room.
No,
I have no
never.
desire to do that because I don't grow. But I think in the younger years in a career that a little bit of that ego. I think there's a shift as you get older, at least for me, where, the attitude of gratitude and like what you're saying, like you have a very service-oriented, mentality that when everyone is at your event, that you treat them all like, they're celebrities. And I've been there, I've felt it. And, I feel like a VIP every time I go to
You are a VIP,
your event. So looking forward, we looked back, looking forward, what would you say, I don't know, 10 years from now, are you somewhere on a beach or, are you in New York, LA, and all these other
I love Miami. Miami. I know that, it's funny because, with some clients, we're like, we're on a 10-year plan. We need to retire eventually. I don't see myself keeping up this pace for 10 years. I think definitely work smarter, not harder. I've gotten to the point where, when a client's going to be a good fit. Sometimes, and I like all my clients to support each other, which is a challenge too. I like, if they're going to come under my wing, they need to be able to hang together, be together and do things, support each other in some way or kind of fit into the puzzle. Where do I see myself in 10 years? Slowing down maybe a little bit, but not working harder, working smarter, definitely learning from everything. You can't be everyone's publicist. You can't, do everything, even though you want to. I am a yes person. I don't like saying no to things. And that has been a lesson. And I think as, we get older, we kind of have to say no or not now to some things. But yeah, we just slow down a little bit.
We just did the art of quitting as a topic at our CEO circle. And the biggest thing that women said is, how to, walk this way and how to stop doing the things that no longer bring us joy. And it was a really in-depth conversation. And it's one that, definitely is powerful once you start to be able to say no. But let's figure out, we have a couple minutes, your minute commercial of the ideal client, the one that you want to say yes to, and how they find you.
I love it. My ideal client is a client that's going to include me. Because my biggest thing is I love it when clients, even if they make a decision, they loop me in. Like, I'm going to do this event or I'm going to do this. One of my biggest pet peeves is all of a sudden I see a client on a red carpet. Why didn't you tell me you were going to go? How could we have leveraged this? Or why didn't you share you were going to be a part of this event or this speaking opportunity or, kind of, loop me in. I'm a little bit of a type A personality. I want to be in control, but I also want to know how to leverage. So my ideal client, somebody who wants to bring me in as part of their team, their inner circle, and kind of help them grow, and not short term. My ideal client is not short term. I want to grow with my clients, ideally in the long term, to be, executive visibility, to be a brand, to be talent, produce their projects, kind of be involved as they evolved, right? And that would be,
wonderful. Well, you can, Aileen Abella, and once again, A squared for the 2 A's, okay? Because I just got this today. Founder and CEO. You can find her on social media. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everything that you've done for me, for Miami Women Who Rock, and for a lot of the women that I know that you've helped grow and get them out there. And and do their public relations. So, if you want to work with her, you know where to find her. Thank you for joining us on Spotlight TV. A big shout out to Tommy, our producer. Yay! And Grant and Michael and everyone here at Community Newspapers. We are so honored to have them produce our quality show every single week. We will see you next week on Spotlight TV.